comment says as follows. I say all Sephardim need to abandon this Western colonist gullus mindset. I did. I started to follow Rambam Mishnah Torah and do full prostration when I do tefillah. I feel all Sephardim need to stop following all these Eastern European sects and come back to the roots. Well, because it's mainly catered to what you said, but I do want to respond with something a little humorous. It's not a Chabad thing, but it's mentioned in Tanya about most of the V'dichosa, which means a humorous remark. So to respond to this, so they say, how do we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Sephardi? It's appropriate for this. So the answer is because if he was a Ashkenazi, Sephardi, not Ashkenazi, because if he was Ashkenazi, it would be Moshe Rabinowitz.
Exactly.
Moshe Rabbeinu is definitely Sephardi. But for a real answer, what would you like to respond to that?
Well, to that comment, it's an interesting comment. Honestly, it's first of all, who says that the Rambam is dafka what all Sephardim do? Of course, Rambam is one of the biggest Sephardi poskim, but we're going by Shulchan Aruch by the fact that we don't do prostration fully, just like in Tefillah, right? Which Shulchan Aruch was also a Sephardi. Prostration, for anybody who doesn't know, I was also shocked. What's prostration? My friend told me not too long ago, actually. So it's actually like Ishtatchus, actually. Yeah. So during Tefillah, we're not supposed to do Ishtatchus, even according to the Rambam. During Nefilas Apayim, we do Ishtatchus, right? When you mamish like in Yom Kippur, when you go down on your knees and your hands, and then you fully lie down, and then you lie down afterwards.
So, but you're on your knees, but
on your knees, and then going fully down.
But it's not like you're flat. You're on a curve.
No, you start off as a curve, and then Nefilas Apayim ends off
fully flat. Oh, we don't. I mean, in Chabad, we don't do that.
On Yom Kippur, you don't do that?
We just go on our knees, put our head to the floor.
So Korim, usually, Kriya, is
Korim
when you
is
just use your knees.
Yeah.
Mishtachavim is once you actually use your body too.
Right.
And then Naflim al Paneihem. We do that on Yom Kippur, right? So we say all three. Cholam Korim,
Mishtachavim is when you put your head to the ground.
When you put your head to the ground. And then Naflim al Paneihem is when you fully lie down, I'm pretty sure. When you're fully down.
That's what you
ground.
do.
Well, I don't do it. I'm saying we do it in Yom Kippur, yeah. But that's
I'm
what
pretty
it would
sure.
Be.
I mean, it's like sometimes I'm one of the first who gets up and I look around to see how people do it, and I'm pretty sure every time no one is pretty flat. So I guess it's an interesting difference between Chabad and Sephardi minog.
Could be, yeah.
So that in itself is interesting. Why don't? I mean, why do we go completely flat? Or you're saying we shouldn't do completely flat?
Well, during Yom Kippur we should.
But he's saying.
Oh, he's saying during every tefillah. He's saying every single day when you daven, when you do the tefillah tapayim after tachanun, right? Usually when you say, I don't know if you guys say the David or whatever it's gonna be when you put your hand down.
Yeah, we do it.
You do Lev David.
Yeah.
So we also do it according to how it's supposed to be done right after tefillah tamidah. It's supposed to be fully nefilas apayim. It's supposed to fall on your faces fully. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't anybody do it nowadays? Because the Zohar was found, and Zohar was found after the Rambam. Over there it says that what the whole avodah of it, really it's supposed to be done like this. You're supposed to fall on your face. But what it actually does, it's like a very, very, it could be very dangerous if you don't do it properly, right?
Why is it dangerous?
It's like a whole thing on Kabbalah. After you're going from Amida, you're like such strong power. I don't know how to explain it fully. But I'm actually sure one of the Rebbein actually goes into it a lot. It's
interesting because it's universal. No one does it.
Because the Shulchan Aruch paskin like that. Once you go down, the whole idea is after Tfilat Amidah, you have so much power, you can go down into the klipas. Go all the way down and be able to fix whatever's fallen over there. So if there's anything that's fallen, in Rabbi Nachman's language, he makes it even worse. He makes it sound like there's philosophical questions that you're not even supposed to ask, but there's Yidden that got lost in those philosophical questions. Right, he brings that up philosophically. So he says, and you can go and actually, Nefilat Apayim is the avodah of actually going down there and doing that. But he says nobody can do it, only big tzaddikim. Right?
Wow.
Therefore, actually, it's interesting. There's like certain kololim of Mekubalim in Eretz Yisrael, Svardish and Mekubalim. They're usually actually very into Hasidus too. They still do Nefilat Apayim. Sephardim Bachlal don't do anything. We just sit down. Ashkenazim usually put their hand down, right?
Yeah.
It's like a zecher to it.
Interesting. And Yom Kippur,
we do it because we're doing it zecher l'mikdash. That's an Indian. I guess we were like malachim. We could do it. We have enough power to do it. anyway, there's no.
We're all holy.
Yeah, we're all holy then.
Wow, interesting. Is that all you want to say about that comment?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Like, listen, when it comes to being Sephardi and saying the OG Sephardi, like the original Sephardim, that's how it's supposed to be done. All the Sephardim are supposed to go back there. It's left afka. Honestly, the whole world. I saw. I think my friend showed me also a different comment over there, with clothing. Has to do, I guess, with one another.
So there's two of them. The first one.
Said about dressing up like an Arab.
Should I read it?
Sure.
We didn't dress like an Arab. We are from the Middle East. Our ancestry, David, looked like a Jew. You would call him Arab because of his clothes.
Right. So what I said, I guess, last podcast, whatever it was, I said that we would look at a Sephardi then, and he just looks like what we would nowadays see in Arab, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
In the olden days, Moshe Rabbeinu, like you said, is not Rabbanavitz. You know, he didn't wear a suit or a frock or a hat, you know, whatever it's going to be. He wore whatever they wore, probably sandals and a robe, you know. And that's what everybody wore, or jalabia, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I guess, like, what other clothing was there back then?
That's what they would wear. That was the normal clothing, I guess. And I didn't mean it as, like, we're supposed to look like Arabs. What we used to look like was what Arabs used to look like. But obviously, this is connected to both. Just like Sephardim are not just like they were then, right? We can't go around dressed up like the Ben Ish Chai nowadays. Barely anybody does it. Maybe, like, Punjabi people, you know. Whatever, in some Indians, maybe some Arabs, some places, Saudi Arabia, you can dress up like that. But walking around nowadays here in Toronto or in anywhere you are, in New York,
just
look at you
weird. Yeah, exactly.
So just like in Chabad also, I think there's a big idea also in Chabad of living with the time, right? People are not dressing up with Shtreimels nowadays.
Yeah.
So Chabad took away, I guess, also.
So may I mention something specific about Shtreimels? So I believe someone asked the Rebbe, if he wore a Shtreimel, he will get a lot more chassidim.
Right.
His
father-in-law wore a Shtreimel too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Rebbe responded, as far as I know, paraphrasing, but then what would be with all the so-called secular Jews? Would they, but
then you can go, how far does that go? So why does the Rebbe wear jeans, you know?
Right. That's what I was thinking also. And that's very important to discuss. I don't think, I've never heard anyone discuss that. So there obviously has to be a balance. Right. And I found the Rebbe has the perfect balance. The Rebbe's perfect.
Sure. I think you give the formula for the balance. That's another thing. I guess with that, some people, they take, I don't know, this is a personal thing. Again, I'm not fully Chabad that I can go and say that this should be how Chabad goes. 100% Chabad, there's an inyan to be misbattled to cancel out to your Rebbe. And because of that, you do a lot of the things that he did, and you do it in his way. And Bedafka, like you're saying, he has the perfect balance, right? But I still think that the formula that was then said, just like the Baal Tanya dressed up different, and he did a lot of things different, and the Rebbe, the middle Rebbe, and the Tzemach Tzedek afterwards, they changed some things. Just like the Rebbe himself changed after the father-in-law. Why did he decide that that's it, we'll stop wearing Shtreimels? I think that even after the Rebbe, now there still continues to be something like, I guess you do have to still live with the times and still kind of change up to see what's obviously mechubad. You still have to walk around mechubad. If suddenly people started wearing longer shirts, right, and that was more of a mechubad thing, or shirts with less buttons, and that was a more mechubad thing, and that's how people the world decided to change in that way, right? That's considered something that's mechubad, then I think it would be fine. I think everybody would start changing to be like that. Like I also see you. I don't know. You're wearing a black shirt. You know, not usual. Lubavitch thing to wear, or like a blue hat. You know, it's cool. I like it. But
Thanks.
You don't see the normal Lubavitcher, the mainstream Lubavitcher walking around like that. So I'm saying also, I think there isn't dafka hechrach to dafka have to dress up in that way with, the three holes in your or the broken hat, whatever they say. They say also another joke. They say Lubavitcher doesn't break a cup in his wedding; he breaks his hat in his own.
That's a new one. I guess maybe it's an outside Chabad joke.
It's an outside Chabad joke. It's not inside Chabad for sure. My brother told me it. But yes, that was the thing. Like also, like what's your thing with you don't dress up like the normal mainstream Chabad?
Yeah, that's a great question, and sort of it's kind of answered in what we said already about how the Rebbe. If you just look how the Rebbe dressed, even especially before he became Rebbe, he was very much with the times. Like the common denominator between how old, no matter how you're dressed, the common denominator was it was always mechubad. It was always presentable. And and yet it was styled to the time. It wasn't. You just looking good does not wrong. Like you can look good and it's not too much. Like there's a good balance. And who is to say exactly that this is the way you have? This is like this. If you're not dressed this way, it's wrong. If you're not dressed this way, you're not Chabad. Like the Rebbe himself changed. I don't believe that. I mean, the Rebbe, as far as I know, the only thing the Rebbe made a big deal is, and it's not something that's Chabad. I think it's more of like a halachic thing. It's more is the hat and jacket. That aspect, the Rebbe made a big deal. I don't know exact sources. I've heard stories about it, but it's like. But besides for that, and specifically you mentioned the shirt. So it's been bothering me because if you look back in the I don't know when it changed, like after Gimel Tammuz in the around 90s. I don't know if it has anything to do with after Gimel Tammuz, but everyone, even in yeshiva, wore non-white shirts.
Right.
It was like, what's this thing? Like maybe on Shabbos you wear a white shirt, but like during the week, regular bacher could wear a blue shirt, polka dot shirt, whatever.
Because it's like after Gimel Tammuz, everybody went up a stage, went up an oilam, another world. So it's like as if only Shabbos used to be white shirts, and now every day has to be white shirts.
Yeah, but I mean, the Rebbe himself, there's a thing in Chabad that you wear a silk kapata on Shabbos.
Oh, it's also in Chabad?
What do you mean also in Chabad?
I see that usually in other Hasidim.
Well, our kapatas are different. I don't know about all the names, but our kapatas on Shabbos are silk. The way it's always been, and then during the week, it doesn't have to be silk. And then I don't believe the Rebbe said we should copy him in this aspect. He himself did it in the 90s. That I believe I believe it was the 90s that he wore a silk kapata the whole week. But then again, was he saying that you should copy me in this? I'm bringing up that point because then maybe people learn from that. Just like a silk kapata was only on Shabbos, so then you have to wear and then the Rebbe changed it for the whole week, 24/7. So too white shirts. White shirts only used to be Shabbos, now 24/7. Again, the Rebbe I don't believe the Rebbe said we should copy him in that aspect. And the Rebbe didn't speak about white shirts. And I'm not focusing on white shirts. It's just, it stands out, and also on the hat and everything. I'm not saying it's wrong that you shouldn't wear white shirts the whole week. I think it's something that's dependent on the person himself. The fact that it's not a Shulchan Aruch thing. The Shulchan Aruch says you should just dress mechubad. It doesn't say what color. And the Rebbe, I don't believe, said you should wear certain color, certain this, certain that. So I believe it depends on the person. And what does it mean it depends on the person? How does he feel that this is going to... I want to take a step back. And this could apply to everything. This is how I try to live my life, and I suggest everyone try to live this way. That everything, and it's something that really, it's a Chabad thing, that everything we use in our life should be to serve Hashem. And I made a video about this, about how chitzenius brings to the pnimius, and how we should use chitzeniistic things to do pnimius. And clothing is a very good example for that. Yes, we could fall into the trap of getting in too much into our clothing and all these chitzeniistic things, but if that were the case, if we were worried about, then if we worried about those things, we should isolate ourselves like back in the ghettos. We're not in that stage. Yes, there are boundaries, but so that's where it depends on the culture, it depends on the city, it depends who you are. I mean, if you're asking personally, and I don't believe I'm the only one who should be doing this, to use whatever you can, it's klipas naiga, that's neutral, and use it for Hashem. That's one aspect. So if you believe that if a non-white shirt or a different colored something or a certain style is going to help you serve Hashem better, it just make you feel good. Even you making you feel good or makes you more respected. It can get you, people. I'm not sure if people are clicking on my thumbnail because of the color shirt. That I'm telling you the truth. That's actually a factor. I believe possibly someone will let me know in the comments that if I try to, to be honest, I don't like it chitzenius. But I believe that's what Hashem wants from me. Hashem wants that anything chitzenius that will help people, hook them on to the pnimius of the content of what I'm going to say, that's what Hashem wants. That's one aspect. Another aspect is that I also kind of spoke about, and maybe I'll more expand upon it, is that the problem of wearing, again, we're going to say the white shirt, or wearing a silk kapata the whole week, or specifically a white shirt all the time, and I speak personally about this, is that when it comes Shabbos, when it comes Shabbos, I don't feel like it's Shabbos. If I'm wearing the same clothing, it's not Bachrim especially, where we wear the hats and jackets all week, and pretty much all black, right? Black shoes, because also the dress code in yeshiva is like that, especially as a Bachar. I felt personally it was hard to feel Shabbos. Yeah, I know in Chabad we're into the pneumius, but like, come on, like, are we all perfect?
You have to make the chitzenius.
You have to chitzenius also matter.
The pneumius also has to be.
Halacha says, that you have to wear Shabbos clothing, and it just. I feel personally that it's hard to feel Shabbos when
your way is bedafka using a white shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it would be a little bit different. I wear a white shirt every day, for whatever reasons they're gonna be. But like I would wear cufflinks, for example, on Shabbos, or special cufflinks, right? Or more matching cufflinks. I would wear a tie, right, on Shabbos.
You look even more respectful.
Even more respectful. Or I never wear a suit during the week unless it's a semicha or something special. I don't know.
It's like a thing, though. It's not just you, Sephardim.
It's a thing also, for
They're
Sephardim.
not into suits. Like,
you're saying it's time to wear a blazer all the time? I'm saying
yeah,
Shabbos,
like Ashkenazim.
Blazers I wear the whole week, like a separate blazer. So, for example, my pants will always be black, and my blazer will be blue.
Mm-hmm.
Or
but
would be, but an actual full suit only on Shabbos. That's like my thing. Only Shabbos, and usually it would be like a 3-piece or like a double-breasted. I want to look a little bit different. You want to look this. My thing is usually also with white shirts. What is it? Like, why I wear white shirts usually? Why I usually walk around like what people would call the normal, the yeshivish look or whatever people look like. I still have things that show that obviously I'm not that yeshivish. I don't grow out my payas behind my ears, even though I'm around like yeshivas and things like that, kollel. Because on one hand, I want to still be able to show as if I'm part of you, right? So they would accept me. And then that way I can see that I can be mashpia on them. Because a lot of these places won't be mikabel chasidus. They don't want to listen to Chassidus. They don't want to learn more pneumius. More.
Who's they that you're
I'm saying stam. If I would go to a place like a kollel, right, or yeshiva, or people who would be more yeshivish, right, and I'm talking to them. If I look different to them, too different to them, for them it can already cause them, like a blockade. Like I don't really want to listen to you because you look weird enough, So like, why would I ever want to take something from you, like learn something from you? That it happens. It's what happens if you don't look normal to them. So. The white shirt doesn't really hurt anybody else but them, right? Like the fact that I'm wearing it, everybody still usually Chabad is okay with it. Kiruv, who cares?
It became a norm that everyone that has white shirts.
Everybody can wear white shirts. Everybody can dress up formal or casual or in this kind of way. Nobody really looks at you weird. But if I look a little bit different, there's more the yeshivish world, which I'm a lot into, right? Like whatever the world that's more dressed up like this usually, right? That they would actually judge you according to it. So I would wear that not because I care what they judge me about, but because I want to be able to bring myself in, just so I can talk to them also my ashkafas, things like that I can bring into them, teach them something that's that they would actually be able to learn from, something that they're not used to, like chassidus, usually pneumius, something that's more in depth, right? I would talk their language. I would talk in a yeshivish accent. I'm very Sefardi. In yeshiva, I was very against it, right? I remember being in an Ashkenazi yeshiva, and they would like Litvish yeshiva, and they wanted me to dafka say everything in a yeshivish accent, and I would have dafka say no. Once I'm already in, I'm gonna be me, and I did everything in Sefardi accent, right? I could do a Sefardi accent, especially when I talk to Israelis or people that are Sefardi. I do everything in a Sefardi accent because you should be comfortable with me, but I always want to make the other person feel comfortable, right? There's a famous Baal Shem Tov story with who was it? A woman that her son was very sick, right? And he was gonna die or something like that. And they told the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov said, he started davening for the almana, or for the woman, so that her son will live. And they said in Shemayim that if you daven, he'll only go in if we take away your olam haba. So he said, take away my olam haba, I'm davening for it. And he davened. They said, there was a baskol that said, Baal Shem Tov doesn't have a chelik olam haba, still Baal Shem Tov doesn't have a chelik olam haba. And they asked him, how come you're doing this? How come you're allowing your olam haba to go just for this thing? And they also found out that the son anyway will pass away. The son will anyway pass away. Right, so they say, anyway, the son's going to pass away. You're just losing your chelik olam haba. He's saying the fact that I'm praying and she knows about it makes her feel good. He's saying for that little good feeling of a yid, it's worth to lose your whole olam haba. So you see the Baal Shem Tov, he said that more it's derech eretz kadmon al Torah. Sometimes you have this idea of first let another yid feel comfortable with you. Once they feel comfortable with you, you mamish already as if you already got olam haba, right? That's the main push. So sometimes if you see a yid that he's not comfortable with you, right? You have something to share, right? Every yid has something to share, right? We all have a kesher of dalit, of tulum. We're all makusharim one to another somehow in the back of our minds, right? So I'm saying you have to be makusher to every. So kesher dalit is behind everybody's mind. There's something that's makasher everybody. Makasher. That's makasher us, right? This is the kesher to Hashem. This is usually kesher to a chaver, to a friend, to all yidden. Behind their mind, somehow we're all makusher to one another. The problem is, what if I'm makusher to you and you don't want to talk to me because you think that I'm a lower level? I'm a sugbet, like you said before, right? Sugbet. That's a sugbet. So then I can't talk to you, right? So Ajaba, we have to be. That's also I was telling you before in the past podcast. The big idea of Chabad. We have to be able to talk to each other. If we're too much into our own thing and we can't listen to another person because we think that he's sugbet, he's number two. He's like a lower tier, and then we can't be mekasher ourselves to one another. I think the Baal Shem Tov, most important for him was ajaba, to be able to put another yid on top of us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Chabad ajaba, you can use that, like you're saying. The idea is to look at the pneumius, how I can change it to make my avodas Hashem better, to make someone else's avodas Hashem better, to be able to bring Hashem's name down, mamish, to be megala Hashem's name in the world. Yeah. Right. That's really what you're supposed to be using the world for. And I do agree. I do agree with the whole clothing idea. It's true.
I'm sure there are people who maybe will like me with a white shirt, but you can't make everyone happy.
You can't make everyone happy. 100%. That's true.
Yeah. I gotta accept that before I made my podcast.
I remember. I think I told you a joke. I told you the joke before. No, the famous joke with I don't know if I said it in the past podcast. I don't think so. The chamor, the bride and groom that just got out of the wedding, and they in the olden days, and they got a present. Mm-hmm. They got a donkey. Mm-hmm. I tell this to everybody, this joke. they got a donkey. Someone gave them a donkey. Yeah. Before they didn't have cars then. They gave them a donkey. So okay, they took it. The husband sits on the donkey and the wife is just walking with it. And then people walk by and they're like, "Oh, look at him. He thinks his wife is a slave. Treats her like nothing. They just got married. He's acting like that." He heard that. He's like, "Oh, they're right." So they switched. She got onto the donkey and he's walking. Mm-hmm. People pass by and they said, "Oh, look, she's already controlling him. He's gonna be a shmata his whole married life." Mm-hmm. So they said, "Okay, what are we supposed to do?" So they both got off the donkey, right? So they got off the donkey. They're walking donkey beside them, right? And people are like, "What? They have a donkey." People pass by. They're like, "They have a donkey. They're not even using it." That's stupid people, So they decided, "Okay, let's both get on the donkey." So they both got on the donkey, right? And usually 2 people is a lot for a donkey, right? People pass by, they're like, "Oh, miscan, look at the donkey. They're mamash, both on it. Look at the chassid. You know how much you ate after the wedding? It's crazy. You can't." So whatever. So they're like, "What are we supposed to do?" So they carried the donkey, both of them. So then people pass by and said, "Look at these donkeys carrying a donkey." So the messer, what comes out of the joke, no matter what you do, people are gonna talk. So yes. Do you do you. You have to do what you have to do. You don't have to worry what people talk about, like you said before. Mamash. Just do what you think is good for avodas Hashem. You don't have to worry about the maligim, right? That's the first halach in Shulchan Aruch.
Even on the contrary, they say that if everyone's agreeing with what you're doing, is okay with what you're doing, something's wrong with what you're doing.
That's also true.
There's always going to be opposition.
I always found that interesting. There's two chazals. There's one that says that. There's the other chazal that says that ahuv lamata is a symbol that you're ahuv lamala.
What is ahuv?
Ahuv lamata. If you're loved down here, people love you here. Everybody loves you here. Mm-hmm. It's a sign that up there they like you, right?
So you're saying it's a contradiction. So it's become the Lom de Shashir. That's the answer.
I guess, yeah.
No, but it's
make some Torah out of it.
It's caught my curiosity to try to answer that.
We can leave it at Tzarachi, and later on we can figure out a Hasidic pshat.
Yeah, I want to think about that. So I, like I said, I do believe it's set that it's impossible for you to be. Well, do you think people who are, let's say, they're into kindness, a lot of chesed, do you think people have a problem with it? There will be one they'll have a problem with that.
Someone's into kindness all the time?
Yeah.
I'm saying, look at Avraham Avinu. Did he have anybody that was against him?
No. Okay, so there you go. That's the answer. I think so. Possibly ahuv means like loved because of more acts of kindness and stuff like that. So you can't really have a problem with that. No one, unless like someone's evil, like like a Malik.
I would think more of a simpler pshat, I guess, if you want to answer for that. It would be Av Lamata is more of a feeling. If you have a feeling, you have this feeling out of nowhere that like people love me, like you ever seen that before? That people are like always mishabech, they're saying like, listen, you're a good person, or whatever. You're like you're doing a good job. You should continue doing. They're always blessing you. That you should be mitzliach and whatever you're doing. That kind of feeling is a sign. It's not really for you to feel good, not to be misguy. To think I'm something.
It's telling you that Hashem is also
Baruch Hashem. Hashem is sending me a sign. He's saying I'm doing good. The path that I'm going with is good. That's a sign. But the other thing that you were saying, that if you're matzliach in everything, mamash, it's not matzliach. Maybe it would be if nobody's actually telling you to change anything ever, right? As if everything's going on one line. Like everything that I'm doing, never ever. It's almost dead. It's dead, but you think it's alive. Yeah, it's just a straight line. Yeah. You should know something's wrong. Mm-hmm. Right. Usually they said about a Rav, actually. They said about a Rav that everybody likes, something's wrong with him.
Yeah, exactly. Rav, because he's the way he answers questions, it's impossible. He's the opposite.
Unless he's flattering everybody that he's answering their questions. Yeah, they call it Rav Noach. The Rav that's Noach, the comfortable Rav.
Is that
they call it in Hebrew. It's an Israeli term.
Noach?
Noach means comfortable.
Oh.
But Noach is also a name. They call it Rav Noach. Rav Noach is the comfortable rabbi, the one that... They used to make fun of me also in shul. Someone asked me once a question. The Rav wasn't there. I don't know what it was. They asked me a question, and I answered him. You're supposed to be doing this and this, but if it's too hard for you, you could be Mako, right? And you don't have to. Mm-hmm. So the person's like, oh, so you're of Noach now, you can. If it's too hard for you, you can just forget the mitzvah. So I'm like, no, chas v'shalom, whatever. But it was that idea that you have a.
It's interesting.
If a Rav is too much. Yeah, everything's good.
So people ask you rabbinical questions?
No, I hope not. I'm saying, I usually tell people if I sense that it's like a rabbinical question, like you're actually asking me something to do with halacha, it's a lot on my shoulders. It's not like I'm something I don't know. I didn't go through Shulchan Aruch from A to Z yet,
So he's just asking you a simple.
If I know the answer, I'll tell him. Dibarta bam, you have to, but. I'll tell him what I think. I'll tell him whatever, but I tell him always, you should always ask Rabbanim, and if you get a different answer than what I got, please tell me. You have to learn. And if I was wrong, then I need to learn it. If I was right, then I should know, right? But I don't go out there to tell people to come asking questions. At times, the people around me thought that they can ask me questions, but you have to be very. That's actually a very good thing with Chabad that I saw actually. Chabad's very makbid on every single person should be a Rav of their house. Every single person should get smicha, which is very good. I'm saying obviously the Chabad smicha. Actually, they're doing a very good job.
How do you know?
I have friends that they were learning.
And you can tell they know their stuff.
Chabad smicha. I don't know if they know their stuff, but I like the program. I went through.
It's interesting you bring that up because I did want to make actually a single video on that on smicha, not to bash it, even though it may sound like bashing, but. I'm just looking around. You can just.
I do think you can learn a lot more, and you should push a lot more. That's for sure true.
Well, you're saying there's more that they can learn.
A lot.
No, and I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about even what they do know. There's two problems that they have. Most of them don't do chazara, so they don't know. And probably even taking a step back, when the way they learn it is not in a practical way.
Right.
So it's like. Oh my goodness, the milchik spoon fell into the cholent. What do I do? And they're like, wait. They have to think probably take them, if they're lucky, 5 minutes to come up with a practical answer. It's...
Yeah. That's also one thing. I would say the exact opposite, actually. I would want them to learn more. A lot of the people who are going through the Chabad smicha, lav dafka actually know how to learn. They learn it through the Rabbanim, they give the shiurs and whatever, but they don't actually know how to open up the Sefer and check. Mm-hmm. Right? I think every person who's going through smicha should also have, obviously, achronim svarim. Sephardim have a lot more than Ashkenazim. More Kitzur svarim, like Kitzur Shulchan Aruch svarim. Mm-hmm. We have, every other Sephardi Rav makes an halacha sefer, which is just basic halachas, mamish like that. So a lot of Ashkenazim like that idea, that they don't have it as much. They do, some Rabbanim have it, but you don't have it as much as Sephardim, that you mamish have, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, everywhere. Not just Yilkut Yosef. You have, every other Rav decides that they should make another kitzur, and usually they're all the same. They're all, sourcing back to Ravadia.
Every one is more kitzur than the other. every new one is becoming more kitzer than the previous
Either
one?
more mekutzer or longer or more on these halachas. So they have one for isur v'heter, like a
More
special
organized, more
organized. Yeah, so it's easier to find things, right? And usually, I think people, if you actually learn, if you should be like this. If you're actually learning smicha, right? For even if you're learning it through Chabad, whatever it's going to be, if you actually know how to learn the Sfarim, right? You would obviously appreciate a lot more also getting Sfarim of Achronim, of Rabbanim who live right now, who have these Kitzer Sfarim, just to be able to always go to how do you say it? To after you learn the whole sugya, whatever it's going to be, to go and look at it in a Kitzer and just to see it, in like a shorter form.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you remember, like you're saying, so then you won't have to be like,
That's the
I'm
balance
stuck.
of both.
Yeah, a balance of both. Then there's the people who don't learn at all the sources, and they just learn the Kitzer Sfarim, and like they think they know what they're doing, and sometimes they can try to connect two things, right? And think, oh, that should be the halacha in this kind of case because it's not written down, but this halacha and this halacha sound like they would be able to answer it together because of these two klalim, whatever general rules, but you don't know that there's another rule that actually makes this not allowed. And then people could end up doing averos like that.
Yeah, I heard one of the reasons is that not necessarily are they supposed to actually know it, but they're supposed to know how to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll be familiar when the rabbi when they phone the rabbi and say, oh, and the rabbi will respond to them, oh, was it 24 hours? And they'll understand all the concepts that they're saying and know how to ask the question. But it's still funny to me. Speaking about smicha / halacha, also to emphasize that I believe the Rebbe said that there's not enough focus on halachas that are very time sensitive. For example, the whole halacha is about the Sefer Torah in the sense of reading it. Why is it time sensitive? Because it's not respectful to keep the Sefer Torah opened. You can't just probably assuming that it's not enough to just you just take you have a Sephardic Sefer Torah, so it's a little different, but by Ashkenazic Sefer Torah especially, you just take the mantle and just plop it on top and you look at an halachic sefer, it's not respectful. It's very important to learn time sensitive halachas.
Mm-hmm.
In the kitchen, I guess if it's before Shabbos, maybe a little time sensitive and everyone's busy before Shabbos, so yeah.
Right, yeah, time sensitive halachas is very. So when you're caught on the spot, and you have 5 minutes to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are very important actually to know them. Yeah, mamash v'dibarta bam, you have to be able to answer them.
Also reminds me how shlichim also need to have something always on the spot. You can even not even halacha, but also Dvar Torah. Say something, they have to always have something.
So usually for me, I always tell people, Lo ish dvarim anochi. I'm not a person of dvarim. I don't have things to say, but I always have a story. That's always my thing. So I was just I was substituting for a certain Rav up north, the Bukhari Rav up north, and I was telling them, it's not like I have that many Dvar Torahs and drashas. I'm not going to make you a whole drasha. Plus, they're probably going to fall asleep in the drasha. I would fall asleep in the drasha. So I told them, what I do have is stories. So they said stories is also good. And then, through stories, Baruch Hashem, you're able to get something out of it. Like a nice story. I said a lot of Balatanya stories. Actually, I think there was a yard site 2 days ago of Rashab.
Yeah.
The Rashab?
I believe, yeah.
Or the Maharash?
Rashab.
Yeah. Rav Shalom Dover.
Yes, I believe
Rashab.
so. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I just said a bunch of stories, a lot of Chassidish.
About the Rashab.
Love Defka Rashab. I said more Balatanya. I think I said 2 about Balatanya.
You just because it was his yard site.
No, I'm just saying Stam. I remember that there was a yard site not too long ago. But I was saying a bunch of, especially Chabad stories.
For those who are not watching it right away, it's Beis Nisan, yeah.
Yeah, it's Beis Nisan. It was Beis Nisan.
Was Beis Nisan.
Yeah, no, it's Stella, I think.
So 2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was just telling them stories, and then from the stories you can get a whole drasha out of it. I don't have to go and be mekash or 400 gemaras, together, and then get to a nice Musardik idea, which would be obviously beautiful. I see that more needed in in yeshivas, which they don't have. Yeshivas usually they don't have drashas. If there's ever a drasha, everybody just puts it down. I guess maybe it's not built the proper way. Drashas was more of a thing then in the olden days when
you say drasha, what do you like?
A drasha, I mean, it would be like the old. If you ever seen old drasha Sfarim of Sephardim do it, Ashkenazim do it, everybody does it. but they used to have old drashas farm. It's like you don't just start with like a nice pasuk from the parasha and you give a story and whatever. The olden days it was like they started from a midrash, and then they or like a gemara, right? It would almost be like a gemara shir, but more in a gadita. And you go and you bring one gemara, a whole sugya, and then you bring two other gemaras that sometimes can be contradicting, right? And then you can bring a different midrash and different ideas, different mefarshim, different than halachas, and sometimes you don't even have to do with one another at first, and then in the end you connect all of them with one idea that answers all these different sugyas, right? And then you'd be able to go on with that idea, and then it just touches the person more. So that's the olden time way of drasha. Like right, nowadays people try to do that. They read these drashas farm, these rabbanim. They go, I see it also with Chabad sometimes. You try to explain a mimer or like a sicha sometimes to like push at people. They're not gonna like understand it. They're gonna fall asleep. They're gonna just whatever they're gonna do.
Does it make sense or does it make sense?
It does make sense, but you really have to think through it. Nowadays people don't have that.
Isn't that the same style?
Like I said last time, Rebbe sichas are not too bucky in. I don't do too many sichas because they're in Yiddish, so I have a harder time doing it.
Oh no, they have the whole set in Hebrew.
They have in Hebrew,
but it's not really so available.
It's not so available. I don't have them.
In
not
Israel,
here.
It's much more popular.
In Israel, it's a lot more popular. I think they do have it. I've seen it before, but I also have a hard time learning without someone. I need to learn with someone. If I'm learning it myself, then it's usually my things, my chukim, the things that I do, the chuk, whatever I do.
Chitas Rambam.
Chitas Rambam, Gemara, whatever it's gonna be. Yeah. So those are my self things. Even then, I try to do it with the chavrusa.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes I see these Lubavitchers. They're giving a whole drush and whatever. Like sometimes you can, not just Lubavitchers. Everybody does this. And it's like, people don't understand that people are not going to connect to it. It's too much information at once. First grab them. Give them a story.
Oh, is this for the first time meeting them? First time speaking to them?
Especially, yeah.
That's where most of the shlichus comes in, a humorous remark,
Right.
that you catch them. But
no, but I'm saying a lot of the drasha ideas are more for yeshivas. Those kind of things are actually more for yeshivas. For actually not every yeshiva. For boys that you already know are learning and they want to learn, they want to listen. Those guys who actually already have a cheshik.
So where are people doing this that they shouldn't be doing it?
The shuls. People always come to shuls. Always giving.
Seeing like
I remember in Eretz Yisrael. I remember in Eretz Yisrael, for example, right? Like we used to have all these like shluchim. I guess Lubavitchers. You'd come into like different shuls. I would like to go to different shuls sometimes on Shabbos, just to see the vibes. Morocco. Yeah, shul hopping. On Shabbos, on the way to the Kotel. I would go from Sanhedria to like every Moroccan, or Bukharian, Taimani shul, I would go to Ashkenazi shul, Chassidish shuls. And like you see sometimes like all these Lubavitchers coming in, like it's nice, They come and they want to say a drasha, like nobody actually listens, from the beginning to the end. They're trying to give like a nice idea from the Rebbe, but sometimes you have to work on that idea of being able to know how to format everything, make it mekutzer, right? As they say, right? Boaz, when he came into his field, right? He said to the kutzerim, to the people who are harvesting, right? But kutzerim also comes from the word kitzer, from shortening. So he said to the shorteners, Hashem is with you. It's an Israeli term that they do.
So in other words, that Hashem likes.
Hashem likes these
also
short
like
things.
a Mishnah somewhere. I don't know. Like
it
says something
is.
You should teach in short or something.
Yeah, always your thing should be short.
But that's more in general. You're saying to hook people on.
It's always short.
Unless
if it's an halacha shiur, obviously.
But I guess if a rabbi's in a show for like many years, I think that's. But he always had newcomers though.
You always have newcomers. So the shiurim that I like that are long are usually halacha shiurs. That's fine. When you're giving halachas, it's about to be Shabbos Gadol, like next week, right, or 2 weeks. So like those kind of Shabbosim, like usually in my shul, it's an hour and a half shiur, but everybody's tuned in because it's all halachas. It's literally just as if the rabbi's reading a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Literally just going through all the halachas of a Pesach. What do you need to know? Practical, What's the shiur? What do we hold of matzah? How much matzah do you need? Wine. What kind of wine should you drink? Right? Are you yotze with kedem wine, like just random grape juice?
It's supposed to be 2 Shabbosim from now, which is like 2 days before Pesach. Shouldn't it be like much before? Like most people.
When they're learning the halachas?
You didn't get all your grape juice and matzahs and all of those things till Shabbos Agadol, you're in trouble.
Some people, like you're saying, there's newcomers. There's people who are, especially in Sefardic shuls, people don't come until it's
never too late. It's never too late. Pesach Sheni, never too late.
Pesach Sheni. You're going to go keep Pesach and Pesach Sheni. whatever it's gonna be. Yeah, but that's the idea sometimes. I don't know how we got from that to
We're just going with the flow.
Yeah, but I guess with the we started off with smicha.
Smicha, halacha.
Yeah, we talked about smicha, halacha, giving shiurim, giving drushes.
But your point was that you just have to start off short to grab on people.
Grab onto people, yeah. What's the thing? Sometimes Lubavitchers, I guess you have it a lot with Lubavitchers with Chabad, especially in Eretz Yisrael. I saw it. Sometimes they can lose themselves in Hasidus, or it's not even Hasidus anymore. It just becomes the Hasidism or the fact that you're a Chassid of the Rebbe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they lose themselves. They lose their humanity almost. Like you forget that there's other humans that don't know about the Rebbe. You forget that there's people who don't know about what's going on, right? And they don't talk your language anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people it reminded me of a joke. I actually wanted to tell you this joke. It's a funny joke my brother told me. Not every Chabad Lubavitch. I'm not saying Chas v'Shalom that Chabad is like this, but there's some people that get that far.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an interesting joke. He said a Lubavitcher father told his son, he's like, be very, very careful what you do, right? Hashem is everywhere. He sees everything. He's gonna tell the Rebbe. Right? so it's like sometimes, you get so lost in the fact that the Rebbe, he's my Rebbe, which is Baruch Hashem, it's very good. You have to be cancelled out to the Rebbe, right? You have to be like as if nothing to the Rebbe, because that's how you're supposed to be to Hashem. But there's a rule that Hashem said. We made this rule even with Moshe Rabbeinu. We said we can't listen to Hashem straight.
Yeah.
We need someone between us, and that's why Hashem. It's Mamash and Sefer Dvarim. He said from now on you always have someone in between you.
Right.
You have to have with Nevuah also. Nevuah never comes down unless you have a Navi that taught you, right? Even who was it? The last Nevi'im. Chagai, Zachariah, Malachi, I think, the last ones. They asked, how did they, I think the Rav Yosef Albo, Sefer Ikarim, he asked the question, how did they get Nevuah? They didn't see any Navi before that. They didn't have a Navi to learn from. So he says that they didn't really learn from him. It's in the fact that they saw Yirmiyahu, they saw his face, they were able to be Mekabel Nevuah. That's where some, like Rabbi Nachman, for example, or some, Chida brings it, there's a certain iskashrus that you can get from a Rebbe just by looking at him. Right, you can already be mekusher to a Rebbe just by looking at him, looking at his face, looking at his picture, whatever it's going to be. So there's an Indian to have pictures of tzaddikim. There's a lot of big tzaddikim that have albums of Rebbeim,
right?
Just pictures, because it's a big thing to the yuanecha roat at morecha. You have to see your Rebbe, whoever it's going to be, to have a kesher to. But that's on one hand. On the other hand, I think sometimes people can get really lost with it. They lose the Iker. The Rebbe wasn't, the Iker for him wasn't that you're so mavutal to him that you forget that there's an oilam. It's adraba. Dira b'tachloin, and bring the Rebbe down here. Don't get lost to the Rebbe over there. Right? It's bring him down here. Bring everything you need, everything he taught, right? More his dvarim, what he wanted to bring out, right? As if the Rebbe can also say, just like Hashem, Halavai, sorry, not Halavai. It says, Oti shachachu, right? V'torati shamaru. You can forget me, but do my Torah, right? In that kind of way. That's
actually very interesting, because you could take it very much the wrong way.
You could take it the wrong way. That's true.
Basically, you're trying to balance. You're mentioning both extremes, and you're saying that extreme they have to learn how to, like, there's extreme that they forget about Hashem and they have to remember Hashem, and there's an extreme where they're so connected to Hashem but they don't keep his Torah mitzvahs. They don't do what he wants. And in our case, like, people are very connected to the Rebbe, in a sense of like going to New York, going to the 770 aisle, but they're not doing what he says.
Right.
I had it was mentioned in one of the podcasts about something about that. Yeah.
It's like as if the Rebbe much rather you in Thailand helping out Yidden than in 770.
Yeah, but I do want to mention a balance with that.
Making
right?
Tunnels. Okay, well, I'm not talking about that, but whatever.
There's an important thing, because it's also again mentioned in the whole what's the shlichus Chinuch and everything, but from a different angle. That yes, this is a deep vart, and this could also go into a whole aspect of chayei tzadas. That does Hashem want us in heaven with Him, or does Hashem want us in this world? And implying it with the Rebbe, does the Rebbe want us to be on shlichus, or the Rebbe wants us to be with Him in Crown Heights, or even better in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalmi with the Beis Hamikdash, or like in Israel? So I thought about it, and my conclusion is that you need a balance of both. In the sense of, actually, the ideal situation would be with Hashem with the Rebbe in 770 in the Beis Hamikdash. That's the ideal situation. But unfortunately, in Galus, the world needs to be fixed. So it's like an example given is like where the parents don't want to send their kid off to another country for school, but they know that's for his best. A healthy parent should not want his kid to go away to that school. They should want him close, but they know for his benefit it's good for him to get out. So the same thing here. We should actually want to be Ratzoi. We should actually want to be with Hashem. We should want to be with the Rebbe. We should want to be in the holiest places. But what could we do that in Galus we need to be out in shlichus? So now practically, and this goes into Shlach and Kerach, one of my favorite parshias. We have the two extremes of the Meraglim being too spiritual and Kerach being too physical. That if you're too spiritual, I mean, their punishment was worms, whatever, but more of the physical aspect, if you're too much into the shlichus, if you're too much into the physicality, you can be swallowed up by the physicality. What happened to Kerach? So how to make sure that doesn't happen, especially as shlichim, who are mamish surrounded by Gaish Zachen, or should I translate that?
Gaish things.
So they need to reconnect. Now, that's actually, that in itself is more dependent. It's very personal. How often? In general, for most people, they should come to the Rebbe every Rosh Hashanah. It's a thing, similar to what wrestlers have to Uman. But so by Chabad, we connect to the Rebbe by like physically actually going to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wanted that. Very exceptionally, especially financial, different things, I do believe there's some people that they're meant to stay where they are. I mean, well, someone needs to make a minyan for Jews in Timbuktu. Like, who's going to do that? But at the same time, it's also, maybe you can get a bacher you can switch. A bacher who's in 770 the whole year can switch with a shliach for Rosh Hashanah, so the shliach can have a little recharge.
For Breslov works exactly opposite. You have to bring your minyan there. It's not who's going to do the minyan in Thailand. It's that minyan that you've been running the whole year in Thailand. You have to bring them to Rosh Hashanah to Uman.
Interesting.
That's their goal usually.
Okay, never thought about that.
As if the Lubavitcher says, okay, everybody's going to come with me right now to 770.
Well, we do want that. We do want all the Jews to do that. Like, it's actually a good thing when a shliach used to have a minyan, and the reason why he's not having a minyan is because his religious Jews are moving to more religious neighborhoods in 770. We do want that, as hard as it is to be without them. Yeah. So that is the balance, which, yeah, we have to. And it was very confusing many times. There's stories where people, like, it gets really confusing where the Rebbe kind of, it's sensitive, and where this is where there's a lot of machlekes, but it's a good machlekes in a sense where it's actually not clear what does the Rebbe really want. Sometimes, like the Rebbe sometimes would say, "Stay in your shlichus for Shana," or whatever it is, or sometimes he would say, "Come. Why didn't you come? You should have been here by me. Even though you're a shlich, I want you to visit me sometimes." And sometimes the Rebbe said not to come, but he came anyways. And I think the story goes, it's more than one story like this, where it was actually somehow, even though the Rebbe told him he shouldn't come, he still came and it was still good. Like, sometimes you need that chutzpah, and it's a very sensitive situation where sometimes, I mean, also with the Mashiach topic, I don't know if we'll get into that, where even though the Rebbe said not to, but really the Rebbe does, and I don't know. Yeah, there's. Actually,
I want to get into that. Yeah,
you want to get into that?
That's
fine.
Very interesting to me.
But okay, so what do you want to ask about that?
The whole Mashiach
thing. We did make a video podcast about it. What's up with the whole Mashiach thing? I don't know. You didn't watch it.
Which Mashiach thing are you talking about?
It was like two podcasts ago.
I didn't see it. But what are you talking about when you're saying the Mashiach thing?
Well, ask anything. No, there's a lot of aspects.
Like the Mashiachist idea?
There's a lot of aspects about it, and what it define Mashiachist and everything. That's actually a good point. It's good to talk about how is the world, specifically Sephardim, taking on this when they hear about Mashiachist Chabad. How are they taking it, and what we can do that they should be makabel it more. That's a very good topic, a beneficial topic.
I'll tell you what. Sephardim usually.
The hardest are the religious ones. As we said last podcast.
Yeah, no, the hardest ones are the religious ones, but
it's easier to convince someone who's not religious about Mashiach.
Once you're actually able to get both, really. There's a possibility.
Obviously, there's a way, but it's harder.
The religious ones in Eretz Yisrael are hard because of what they. This is something that I also wanted to talk to you about, actually. Something that in Chabad and Eretz Yisrael is not Chabad everywhere else.
Agreed. Yes.
They're very different.
Agreed.
Almost, if I can say, fanatic.
Agreed.
Mamish, you guys agree?
Agreed. Yeah, and it's supposed to be that way. Like,
And-
we each have our culture. It's not just Chabad. It's just Israelis are different than Americans. The
Right.
whole approach is different.
It's scary sometimes.
The way you're Makarev in Israel is different than the way you're Makarev in
I remember
in
for
America.
Purim, people say it was as a joke. I don't know. I wore it because, like, why not? I don't really care if I wear it or not. I wore the Diglan Chabad, the Mashiach one. Okay,
This Purim?
Yeah, this Purim. I wore the first part of Purim, our suit in the morning. I dressed up as an Arab, and then the second part, I was going to more different places. So I don't want to dress up as an Arab now with everything that's going on. I don't want to get pulled over or taken to jail. So walking at the shows as an Arab is not simple. But so I wore the diglan, whatever. That was it was something like a costume. So it's not usually what I do. So people ask me, first of all, like Lubavitchers ask me, how'd you get that?
Yeah, I was thinking that also.
Like, where'd you get that from? We don't find that here anywhere in Toronto. But in Eretz Yisrael, they're everywhere. Literally, they would give it out like hundreds of them. I remember, not just because I davened a lot at Chabad Shlichus, but like, you see Lubavitchers everywhere. They have like 14 of them.
Yeah.
Mamash as if they're like some general in some army. They mamash have like everywhere. And it's like they're wearing these things. So obviously they gave me a lot. So that's where I got them from Eretz Yisrael. But they take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
As if just because I'm from doesn't mean that you can go and now you have to be mekarev me to Mashiachism, I think those Lubavitchers should, all the koyach that they have should go and be mekarev the non-from people. And sometimes I saw Lubavitchers,
Why do you say that?
Why
do you say that?
Because the from people already, sometimes the way that that's what I'm saying, sometimes they get lost so much into the whole being a chassid of the Rebbe that they forget the ikar shlichus, right?
What is the ikar shlichus?
That Chassidus is not Mashiachism. Chassidus is Pnimius Satira, is understanding that there's a Bayra Olam inside every single thing. It's Einon Milvado, seeing Einon Milvado, right? Seeing how Hashem is inside every single thing. That's what I see as Chassidus says. That's what Chabad is. Am I wrong?
So,
and seeing also the idea
it's not wrong. It just is more
having Mashiach, of course. Having a way of looking at the world as Mashiach is coming. I don't think it's so mukhrach right now to go into trying to tell you who is Mashiach right now. First, let me think about Mashiach. People are not thinking about Mashiach yet. People don't want Mashiach really. A lot of yeshivish people, a lot of from people, they don't want Mashiach. Right?
Mashiach's for them also.
Mashiach is also for them, like we said last time, right? So you have to go and first of all teach them what is Mashiach, right? So learning, I saw a lot of Lubavitchers, they're learning Hilchos Mashiach, whatever it's going to be. Fine, Hilchos Mashiach is good. Or what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, thinking about it. Why do we want Mashiach? Like the normal Chabad thing that usually you're supposed to be doing, which I see it more in Chutz La'aretz. When it comes to Eretz Yisrael, it's less, let's learn about Mashiach. It's more, let me tell you who Mashiach is, and if you don't believe me, you're a kaifer. Or like, you're crazy, and I'm going to prove it to you. And I'm going to go crazy. And if you're not going to believe me, I'm just going to be crazy in your eyes, and that's okay. And it was mamash, it scared me. I'm like, why? You're losing a great opportunity. Because of that, people are just marchik Chabad. It's like, Chabad, in Eretz Yisrael for the Chayyim, Bachlash, it's Chabad, those guys
so
with the smartphones.
Are you asking me the question?
I don't know if I can ask you the question. I'm saying,
fact.
if you already agreed to me that Chabad and Eretz Yisrael is a little bit crazy sometimes.
Yeah, but I would take it, zoom out and say, we should, that's the, I don't even use the word scary, but we should be careful. Yes, we want Achdus B'Am Yisrael. At the same time, we should realize that we have very different approaches, and they're all right. I believe the approach that Israelis have, I wouldn't say Chabad, it's the whole culture, Israeli culture, that the way they do Chinuch is very different, and it actually works, I believe, for them.
As long as they're there.
And that's why we have to, when we try to integrate America, when Americans move to Israel, make Aliyah to Israel, or anywhere in Chutz La'aretz to Israel, and likewise when Israelis come to America, New York, whatever it is, I think that's caused a lot of issues because we're confused as to who we are, and we realize that they're still in their culture, Israelis. So a lot of them are still in their culture, and I believe
I think I'm Israeli too.
So
I did grow up with Americans.
No, I think you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You have only the good parts of Israeli and the good parts of Canadian.
So what I'm trying to say is you have to be able to, both sides have to always, because they're both right, but they won't be able to actually work together unless they both give up something.
And who says they have to work together?
I think they do have to work together.
if let's say there's 10 people and there's
They
five,
don't have to go by the same hashkafa.
we need a minion and 5 Americans, 5 Israelis. Yeah, they should work together and have a minion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But when it comes to let's say for example where they should not work, not what we were saying does not work together doesn't sound good, but like having a school for example, I think you should have separate schools.
Separate schools. I have no problem with that.
Have you heard of such a thing in Chutz La'aretz, having a separate school for Israelis and non-Israelis? It's almost like offensive, but I say it's not offensive. It's just different ways.
There are some. Maybe some places.
Just different ways.
Well, there's enough Israelis to
like
actually
let's say
open
for
up a school.
example, we don't have except for Crown Heights, to have so many Chabad schools, but to usually just you have one Chabad because all Chabad people want to go to Chabad schools, but then that's already my first podcast about having different levels of Chabad schools,
so
for lower level, middle level, higher level. Now I'm adding to that and saying it's not just lower and higher level, it's also different style, that Israelis have a different style that kicks them
I think really it should be one school. In a good way. I think it should be one school that teaches all these different things. That's more my idea. So for example, just like you have difference with Israelis and Chabad and Breslov and everybody, right? Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So I would think to have a school that would teach the fact that I guess a lot of Kirov schools do this now, maybe, but to have a school that you're even taking all these from people, right? That they could have grown up in a house that was very yeshivish, Litvish, right? Or they would grow up in a house that's Israeli Chabad, Another guy who grew up in a Sefardi, Masarati traditional, like we keep Shabbos kosher. We learn, I heard of Ben Ish Chai, they heard Baba Sali, whatever, but like they didn't learn anything specifically like your Dafka, the Chassidus right now. And then you can teach like, listen, there's a lot of different parts to Yiddishkeit, right? And everybody goes in their own way, right? And they're all Al-Pi Shulchan Aruch, right? We're not talking about people who go against Shulchan Aruch. We're not talking about conservative reformed. We're talking about people who just decide that their hashkafa is more like Ramchal, right? So they like to be alone in their own world, thinking about their own things. Or there's people who have hashkafas that are more Chabad, that they want to do Kiruv, or some of them are Israeli Chabad, that they want to B'chalal go next level. Some people are just more yeshivish. They like Lamdish Sugyas, and be able to have a yeshiva that can teach every single one. They teach to all the kids, all of them, just so the kids will also not look at the other one as if, you're off. Are you saying
that they should be exposed to everything, and then from there they should choose their path?
Yeah, if everything is the kosher things, again, they're all al pi Shulchan Aruch. Because when you're growing up in a certain
like many years of it, I believe it it should just have 1 year of being exposure to everything, and then they go to their yeshiva like the Breslov or Chabad or whatever.
Right, they can go afterwards. I'm thinking it would be more of a high school idea, and then go to that path, and then they would be open to after you finished high school now. You want to go to base measures, right? Or for the last year of high school, whatever it's going to be, first year base measures, whatever it's going to be. We have all these yeshivas that you can go to. You like the Breslov. That Breslov idea, you want to kosher to it? We have a great Breslov yeshiva for you, right? And you obviously have different Rebbeim also in the yeshiva itself that are like that. You have a Chabad Rebbe, you have a Breslov Rebbe, you have a Litvish, nice Lamdish yeshivish Rebbe, and you have everything. You can have like a more Mikubalnik one, you have a Kotzker one, you have every single one.
You
with
think
their
it's
own.
possible?
I think it is possible. I see it with Bali Tshuva yeshivas. You see usually, and I think that's what's missing actually in a lot of different. Maybe it's connected to what I said also beforehand. A lot of different, more from families that they have, or from whatever the from world when it comes to. Every family almost nowadays, we have boys, girls that go kind of off the derech, or they don't follow through with their parents' way, what their parents want, right? The parent tried to grow them up Chabad, and they just totally went off. And sometimes they could have been saved from going off. It's just because they felt personally that the Chabad, I think we were talking about it a little bit before we started the podcast, right? That I guess it was my friend, he was also in the same yeshiva as me, that one of our Rebbe's, he's not against Chabad, but he saw a Lubavitcher in the airport, putting on tefillin to guys, a kid. And he asked him, do you really like what you're doing? And the kid said, I'll be honest with you, no. This is why you're doing it. This is peer pressure. Everybody, all my friends are doing it. It's just what we grew up doing, right? It's interesting,
That's
first
a
of all.
juicy topic we can go into.
It is a juicy topic.
But why do you bring that up? That story?
I'm bringing it up because sometimes I think there's many parts of Judaism, of Yiddishkeit, right? Like Kotzk is a certain derech, right? A certain malach. Lamdish, Yeshivish, Sephardish, I don't know, Mikubalish, right? Chabad, there's Breslov, there's people who are more into, I guess, Pnimiyas Satira or Pshat or Halacha, right? They're all there not just to be said, that they're all sugbet and then Chabad is on the top. No, or that Yeshivish is on top, or that Sephardim are on the top. That's not the ikar. The ikar is ajaba. They're all there because kashem shepartzufem shonim. Just like their faces are different, kach deotem shonim. That's how their hashkafas are going to be different. It's a Gemara.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks differently. You can't have everybody under one wing. There was 12 shvatim for a reason. Right.
I answered that on the comments to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's mamish 12 shvatim for a reason. Every single shevet had their own thing, right? And they worked Hashem in that way, right? Sometimes you see it a lot in Ishbitz actually. You know Ishbitz? You ever heard of
Ishbitz?
I'm learning a little bit of Ishbitz right now, but you see a lot of. He actually goes into every single shevet. What's their derech and avodas Hashem, right? Some of them are more Yosef, I guess, idea. For him, that would be like less open-minded, more fearful.
No, Yosef was the most open-minded.
In one way, you can say that in one way.
The fact that he wasn't a shepherd, he was out there in the world.
Right.
They say actually that that's Chabad.
Right. So in Ishbitz, actually, they take the exact opposite. Actually.
Okay.
I know, it's interesting.
Okay.
And that Yehuda would be the more open-minded one, the one that's not afraid to do a virus, the chayra, or to go into the world and to whatever. Even though you're gonna say that Yehuda is the one that opened up yeshiva, you have both ways, right? Rachel and Leah.
Yeah.
I guess you can go both ways. In Chabad, it's a whole different Torah. I did see that a lot. When you're learning Ishbitz and you learn Chabad, it's as if they mamish are.
Ishbitz is a Chassidish.
It's Chassidish, of course.
Uh-huh.
It's very mushbal pi Chabad by the way, and Breslov.
When did it start? It's like who was the first?
He's a Talmud of. Well, he was a friend with the Kotzker.
Oh, okay.
Which is a Talmud of Rav Simcha Banim Pshischa.
Like from the Maggid, from the Baal Shem Tov?
So Rav Simcha Banim Pshischa, I think, was Talmud of the Heilige Yid, the Yid Kadosh, the Holy Jew, of Pshischa, the Yid of Pshischa. Okay, there's a certain one. He was a Talmud of the Chayza, I think, and the Chayza of Lublin was Talmud of the Maggid.
Not into so much family tree, but
Rebbe Melech, I'm not sure.
I just wanted to know where is he, like to get an idea, because it kind of says something of if you know where he comes from. The Maggid,
I guess it would be Polish.
Or I even thought maybe somewhere it comes from Chabad. Like there's I forgot the names.
Right,
there's
like the Paracher, or Hillel Paracher, I guess.
Yeah, he made his own way, and even the Tzemach Tzedek's sons. They had their own way, so that's why I thought maybe it was one of those.
No, it wasn't one of those, but they were very much
from Chabad.
They're very much from Chabad, I guess, because they learned everything. Also, I don't know. When it comes to Ishbitz and Bachlash, they would learn like everything. They didn't have filters either, which is why a lot of their Sfarim were burnt. But they had
purposely.
People burnt their Sfarim. He would say things very, very out.
Oh, if
now,
he's from the Kotzker, if he's friends, you said he's what with the Kotzker?
He was
Chavrusas. Kotzker was very sharp, so.
Kotzker was very sharp. It's very big chiddush that he learned with the Kotzker together. I think he learned under the Kotzker too, for a little while, which probably was Gehenim for him, because the Kotzker is very sharp. Everything is emes. If it's not emes, it's total sheker and skfira. But then whatever it's gonna be, you have different sects in Judaism, and that's fine. It's not like it's not a psul. It's not a bad thing. The Hashem made the world complicated for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. If the world is not black and white, it has many colors, right? And it's for a reason. It's to show how Hashem is also complicated. It's don't think that you can understand Hashem, right? In Ishbitz, actually, the main thing is to understand that the fact that the world is so complicated and Hashem is so complicated that you'll never understand it. And don't try finding answers. Try to live with it. How to live with that? How to live with that idea, right? It's more of being able to get to a place where you understand that Atzilus and Etz and Bechlal is far, far away from me, right? And in the same time, it's right here with me. But I'm not going to answer how that happened, how that works. It's more of I'm going to try to live with it, how to live with that thing, because the world is gray, as he says it. It's not black and white. The world is. I'm not sure. You're always in doubt.
So they're trying to look for an answer. They're trying.
Ishbitz, they don't look for an answer.
And I think in Chabad we do try to find an answer.
You do try to find an answer because they're more into svara, right? Ishbitz, they use Chabad to get so deep into the question, right? But not into try to get the answer.
So it's a good thing to be left with a question, and almost.
It's because they don't want to be left with a question in a bad way. It's not.
So why go there in the first place? Why go there in the first place?
Because I'm teaching you how to live with doubts. That the doubt doesn't even bother you anymore. You can live with, and the same time, Enod Milvadoy, and in the same time, I have Bechira.
Wow, that's very deep.
Yeah,
Teach you how to
that's
live
an idea
doubts.
with. So things that he would say straight up, like you don't have bechira, right? That's why his Svarim got burnt, right? Would be things that Chabad would have to go with proofs, trying to explain it, like we would see in Basi Lagani. I think it was Lamed Aleph. The Rebbe goes into a whole thing explaining either the actual Maimer of Basi Lagani or Lamed Aleph, that he mamish went into, like he brought a midrashim and everything to prove that Sachakol, after everything, there is a certain aspect that we don't have bechira. Right? But then he leaves it off over there. You don't really get that full answer. You never really get the full answer of do you have bechira or not. No one ever gets it ever. Chabad, Litvish, everybody. No one really gives you the problem.
Specifically?
Bechira. No one really gives you as much as you'll try to answer it.
Bechira is one of the biggest
foundations, right? But on the other hand, in Vada, nothing works without Hashem. This is kind of veering off of already what we're talking about, but why not? I'm saying so in Ishbitz, which his Talmud is of Tzedek HaKohen. You ever heard of Tzedek HaKohen? Of Lublin?
Lublin, yeah.
Lublin, yeah. So he's his Talmud. He was a big Masnagid before, Snag, as they say. He was a big Masnagid, and then he became his Talmud, also of Leibele Eger, of Rabbi Kiva Eger's grandson. He also became his Talmud. So Rav Tzadok, actually, he brings it up very simply. He says, the real answer for Bechira is the Rambam's answer.
That we can. It's too much to understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think his Lashon is like as deep as big as the ocean or something.
Yeah, whatever it's gonna be. The same. He says this is mamish the answer. What does that mean that this is mamish the answer? He says you're supposed to understand that you have 100% bechira, and in the same time you have 100%. You don't have 100% bechira, meaning 100% you don't have bechira, but in the same time 100% you have bechira. How does that work? It's not my problem. It's not for me to understand. Right? I'm trying to understand Hashem. I can't understand Hashem.
You think it's sustainable? You think it's sustainable?
I'm saying people live life, and in life you have a lot of these questions, and you don't always get answers. Like
so
even
kind of like what
psychology.
It sounds like you should turn off your brain.
It's not. It's actually the exact opposite of turning off your brain. It's being able to work your brain up so much to understand that turning off your brain is the biggest chachma. It gets confusing, but to use your brain so much and then understand that turning off my brain, that's the answer. That my brain won't be able to get to the answer.
Do you know people who are still in that chassidus these days?
That chassidus is not a chassidus that's actually a chassidus now. People just use the Torah. They learn that Torah.
Only the Torah of chassidus. Only the Torah, like the
Torah of the chassidus.
No, really
maybe there is chassidim. They're probably off branches. So I don't know which cities they are. But I do see a lot of Mekubalim going by it, a lot of big Chassidim that came out of Chabad, especially Chabad Ashba and Breslov Ashba, that they learn Chabad and they learn Breslov with it, because it has a lot of basar. It teaches a lot of that idea, the same ideas. Mamish goes into the same ideas, and it's not against.
Now I understand why they burnt it.
You understand why they burnt it, right? People can get far, but usually he says it himself. He says,
I mean, the Rambam, which was Sephardi, made Mar Nevuchim to answer people's questions.
People also burnt that. I'm saying not burnt it, but they got really mad at it. I'm saying later on. They didn't want that. They didn't want people learning it.
So I'm just bringing out the point that he believed that people should have the answers.
Right.
Try to understand.
Just like the Kotzker was. They were very rational. They're very rational. And because of that, actually, then leaving off a question like Bechira with such an answer for people like the Rambam would be one of the least, like, that's the exact opposite of what he is. He's trying to give you an answer. Everything's supposed to be straight. Everything's supposed to have an answer.
And yet he didn't give you an answer.
And yet he didn't give you an answer. That could cause people to adraba, get fear from it. Maybe that's why people were afraid of it.
Put himself in a sticky situation.
Exactly. That's why people were very not into learning Rambam, into Moreh Nevuchim.
I think one of the explanations is that you shouldn't try to learn it. If you have doubts and questions, then you learn it, because
some people say if you have doubts and questions, the exact opposite. Don't learn it, because you're going to get into more doubts. Some people say you understand the question, you won't understand the answer, which is also true with Rambam. But that's why there's a better way to get to a place of Emunah. Emunah, you can call it Pshuta, but it's not really Pshuta. It's very deep Emunah. To a point where your Yiddishkeit is not talui on what I know. It's even if the world shows me the exact opposite of Hashem, I'm still going to be with Hashem, and I know there's Hashem. Obviously, maybe you have to start off like in Kiruv. I don't disagree. I think that people should start off with getting proven when it comes to Kiruv, to prove that there is God and that science also works according to the Torah. The Torah is not contradicting science or whatever it's going to be, right?
Right.
And everything works in that way, and that's totally fine. Start off like that. But to base your whole Yiddishkeit off of that, once you're already by learning halachis, you already have emunah with Hashem. You're already talking to Hashem. You're already davening, right? Those kind of people that already have that emunah pshuta, or that emunah that's already built a little bit. Maybe it's in that rational way that they already built it. Keep on going, to keep on going. If you really want to grow, I think what the Baal Shem Tov really meant was learn how to have emunah pshuta now. Learn how to, everything that you based off of almost, right? Almost forget it, like Reb Zera. Reb Zera, when he moved to Eretz Yisrael, yeah.
But that was a reason.
He fasted.
Why did he do that? You know why?
So there's a lot of reasons. You're going to give me one reason. I'm going to give you one afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay, so I heard the reason why he did that, because in order to really grasp the Talmud Yerushalmi, right? He needed to forget Talmud Bavli. It's such a big jump.
Why? What's the jump from Bavli to Yerushalmi? There's a very Hasidic way of explaining it. It's mainly the Tzionim use it a lot, actually.
Really?
Rav Kook. It's more of a Rav Kook way of thinking, I guess. It would be that Bavli, when you're in Bavel, when you're in Chutz La'aretz, I guess that's also what the comment over here, what he said with Galut mindset, right?
Yeah.
Galut mindset is very individual mindset. It's prat. So he's thinking about me. I remember learning from one Rav, actually. He said, if you look, one of the differences between Talmud Yerushalmi and Bavli, you ever heard of Perik Chelik? Perik Chelik is the last perik of Sanhedrin.
Mm-hmm.
It's perik that starts off with Kol Yisrael Yishlem Chelik Lo Maba.
Mm-hmm.
So in Bavli, it's called Perik Chelik, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Yerushalmi, it's called Perik Kol Yisrael.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting that the Yerushalmi puts it as second last, and Bavli puts it as last. That's a different reason, whatever. But they explain why is in Bavli it's called Perik Chelik, but in Yerushalmi it's called Perik Kol Yisrael. So how he explained it is very nice. He says in Bavel, the avodah is avodah prat. That's Baal Shem Tov's avodah, by the way, right? It's to work on yourself, to be able to bring your own Yeshua first, to bring your prati Yeshua, which the Baal Shem Tov says you have to first have. First, you have to bring the Yeshua to you yourself have to have a personal Mashiach, and then you have to bring the Yeshua to Klal. Then you're finally going to find Mashiach Klali, right? That's the idea of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael people, they're always thinking about Klal. Everything's general. It's not me anymore. Maybe that's also a reason why people aren't ready to move to Eretz Yisrael yet, because they haven't worked on their prat yet. So it says people of Bavel, of Chutz La'aretz, when they learn Perek Kol Yisrael, why are they learning it? They're asking, do I have a chelik l'olam haba? Right? So they learn Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelik. Oh, okay, fine. So I have a chelik. That's good enough. That's why it's called Perek Chelik, right? For Bavli. But Yerushalmi, he calls it Kol Yisrael. Why? Because an Eretz Yisrael Yid doesn't think, do I have a chelik? Do I not have a chelik? Doesn't care if I have a chelik or not. Does Kol Yisrael have a chelik l'olam haba or not? His thing is everybody. I'm thinking about the general. I'm not thinking about myself anymore. I'm totally buttled to everybody else, right? So once I read Kol Yisrael, that's enough. That's why they call it Perek Kol Yisrael by Yerushalmi.
Wow.
So maybe that's what Reb Zera had to fast for so much. He had to totally forget himself. He had to forget who he was, his prati avoida, everything that he worked for to build himself, who he is, his yesh, which is part of building yourself,
that's
right?
The Galus mindset. Oh,
the
like
Galus mindset. That's Galus mindset. To build your yesh, and then once you get to Eretz Yisrael, right, to the Yeshua, you have to be able to take that yesh and understand that bemet, that yesh is ein. That's an ein.
Wow. Oh yeah.
Or the exact opposite. If you want to take it and build who you really are, which is an ein. I'm bemes an ein. I'm not ani. Ani is gava. Make it into ein, and then Eretz Yisrael would be called that ein is actually part of one big yesh, which is Hashem. You can
the yesh
see it in that way. Yesh
yeah.
Hamiti, exactly. Yeah. Which is it's more of a Chabad way of understanding it.
Yeah.
Right?
So going back to the story you mentioned about the Bachar not being comfortable, or he was only doing it because out of peer pressure to put on film in the airport. So what do you think about that?
When it comes to it's exactly what I was saying. When it comes to Bachar not wanting to put on tefillin, maybe that's not his avodah. Maybe he should go by a different avodah. Maybe he's more. If he would have known about, there's a chelik in Yiddishkeit that actually has to do something else. Like be more into halacha, sitting more in a base medrash and trying to understand people halacha, so you can write svarim, have psakim to help out Yidden around the world that don't know what's going on, or to go learn Breslov. I don't know, be happy and dance around.
But what about doing so is he only supposed to be doing things that he likes? Isn't there no aspect where he should be doing it just because the Rebbe said so you should do it?
Well, I think that it's enough what
It's
Shulchan Aruch
interesting.
gives
He
you.
didn't say because the Rebbe said so. He said out of peer pressure.
That's another thing. That's also true. So really, he's not doing it because he really cares what the Rebbe says.
Yeah.
He cares more because of what?
Okay, that's just
That's
a
a
holier.
separate
It's a holier
idea.
example instead of doing a dumb challenge of because your friend's doing it. At least it's a holy peer pressure.
Right, but still, I don't think the Rebbe wants you to do it because of peer pressure.
But maiso eker, maiso eker.
That's on one hand. But I think a Ma'aser Huaker is enough already with Shulchan Aruch. First, get people doing Shulchan Aruch without really wanting to, right?
But he
let's
was
limit
giving,
it to
he
that.
was
Why?
making this Jew put on tefillin, which is part of Shulchan Aruch to put on tefillin.
It's not. You're not mechuyev to go out in the world al pi Shulchan Aruch and put on tefillin on other yidden, right? First, be mekayim Shulchan Aruch yourself. That you should be first happy with. Once you're happy with that, then start taking upon yourself the more Hasidic things to go out into the world and to do shlichus out of what you want. Also, you have to build it. You have to build it. First, the Ma'aser Oiker part of even though I don't want to do it and I'm pushing myself to do it, first do that with Shulchan Aruch. Simple things. Don't push yourself too much. That's where people get lost. That's where people lose it. Like, you're making me do these things, or I'm used to doing these things that really they don't really have to do with what I'm really mechuyev to.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to stick to the simple Shulchan Aruch, right, do that, and then the extra stuff, that can be already your bechira. That's already where you decide how I'll learn how to I'll decide how to love Hashem, past Shulchan Aruch. Obviously, this is over on top of Shulchan Aruch.
He should decide himself.
Then you should let him decide himself. I think there would be a lot less boys going off the derech, a lot less girls going off the derech. Girls, I think, have less of a problem because I think girls are already more open to it. Actually, I don't know when it comes to Chabad. Maybe they're not as open to it. But I see usually they do see more sects in Judaism. Like girls learn more about. There's Satmar Yidden, there's Breslov Yidden, there's Chabad Yidden.
Yeah, I hear that.
I don't know if in Chabad they have the same thing. Like, you have Sefardi, you have Yemenite, you have Breslov, you have different Yidden.
Boys are more stuck to their.
Boys are more stuck. That's it. If the Rebbe said, you're growing up Chabad, you're stuck with Chabad. This is how it has to be, right? And the boy always thought like, I'll never be able to put on too small tefillin, like Sephardim, even though it looks super cool, and it would make a lot of sense for. I don't know. Obviously, if he takes it in a different way, of course, but then you would have to actually go and sit with him and have to teach him, there's a whole different Torah of why Chabad Davka puts on the big tefillin and they change it and they don't put two small ones and there's soidus in it and things like that. But
you want to change like more. It's not minhagim. This is like kind of bigger changes. Like you can't just pick and choose from what you want from different parts of Yiddishkeit.
What I'm saying is that if we were to allow that, I think with a lot of Yidden, obviously minhagim is different. Even Sephardi Yidden that grew up Chabad still have their minhagim.
Yeah, they're supposed
to. A lot
of
minhagim you can stay with, right? But I'm talking about me'ever minhagim, past minhagim, past Shulchan Aruch, past those things, like having to put on tefillin for people, right? Or going around in that dress that we were talking about, whatever, the Chabad dress. Why do I have to, or, putting on big tefillin, maybe if it's your minhag, fine, then put big tefillin, maybe.
But things as doesn't say clear anywhere, it's just sort of so-called made up by...
It's not made up, Chas v'Shalom. It's the Rebbeim. They said to do it, but what if I don't feel mekusher to them? They don't feel enough mekusher to the Rebbe. I think that every single to have a kesher to a Rebbe, sometimes it's a build-up, right? Even if you're going to tell me that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which I have no problem to say, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Rebbe of Rebbeim, this is like the top, right? So then I still think that people have to get there, through Tzimtzumim. They can't just go straight to the Rebbe. You have to have Tzimtzumim, just like Hashem, which is the top. He had to go through Tzimtzumim in order to get to us, right? Right, in order to be able to have him in every single place in this world. The world is still Kayam as we see it, right? Even though it has godliness everywhere, right? But we still see it as you're not Hashem, right? I'm saying you have in you Hashem. Really, you're built out of Hashem. But it's again, Tzimtzumim. So the same way, I think sometimes to get to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a person maybe sometimes has to go through many other Rebbeim first, right? You can see from in Breslov, if you read Reb Nassan's whole derech of how he got to Reb Nachman, right? It can be mashveh. Look at the same way. Just like for Reb Nassan to get to Reb Nachman, he had to first go through Reb Zusha, and then he had to go through Rav Levi Yitzchak Barditchev, and then a few other Rebbeim that he went through, that he learned by them. And he was an Avbezdin himself. He was a big Tamar Chacham, but he always was looking for something, and he was looking until he finally got to his Rebbe. And then once he got it, then he said, "This is it. This is what I was looking for." Right? But if he would have got to Reb Nachman in the beginning, maybe he wouldn't have stayed.
Wow.
Sometimes that build-up is needed, and it builds who you really are, right?
Yeah. It applies to everyone, both from birth and Baal Tshuvas, especially Baal Tshuvas. But yeah, for everyone, you gotta build up gradually.
I know a lot of people that at first they were so against Chabad. Any Lubavitcher would talk to him, give him like the most precious things that you can learn from Chabad. He doesn't want to listen to them at all. Far from away from it. But then he started off Satmar, and then he went out of Satmar because it was too much for him. I don't know. He just grew up that way, and then he grew up that way, and then he went into like different ideas, whatever it was, Karlin or Breslev, and started liking the whatever it was, and then slowly but surely he got in the end to Chabad again. Even though in the beginning people who talked to him Chabad, who'd look at them like, ugh, you know. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a process. You have to get to that process.
Chabad demands a lot.
Chabad does demand a lot. It demands a lot. So I'm saying that's a chassidus, that's going by a Rebbe. It's not something that you can just be born into sometimes. Sometimes you have to be able to know how to get to it. It's a process sometimes. So giving those gvanim, those different that variety of Yiddishkeit, sometimes I think would be even better. If Chabad could do that, I'm saying if anybody can do that. I see Sephardim, it's the easiest for Sephardim to do it because we never had sects. Like, you know, we had your Minhagim, you're Tunisian, Bukhari, you're Moroccan. You listen to everybody. It's not like anybody's thing. Their rabbi would be their Rebbe, right? But to actually make a whole sect of it, a whole Chassidish a thought process, a whole shita, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes that would be too much. It was never a thing for Sephardim, right? They could end up being in some shita in the end. Right, but that's after their bechira themselves, and they're happy there. They find themselves there, in that shita. Sometimes the Ishbitz or Bachlal, he was against shitas. He held no such thing as one shita. He held, your derech avodas Hashem could very controversial. Your derech avodas Hashem could be a different shita every day. You don't know, as long as obviously you're keeping Shulchan Aruch, right? That's the ikar. You're keeping Shulchan Aruch, but listen, you can have 2 weeks your Beshitas Chabad, and the next 2 weeks your Shitas Breslov, right? Your Derech Navet Hashem. If it's more Izbonenus, then more Izbonenus. And then tomorrow, if you feel like you need to do Izbonenus, then do Izbonenus. The ikar is that you're connecting to the Bayar Elam, you're connecting to Hashem, because all of them end up connecting to Hashem. You can't say Breslover is never connected to Hashem. You can't say Kotzker is never connected to Hashem.
So why can't you be a Sephardi on Pesach and Ashkenaz and Elul?
That's different. That's already coming to Shulchan Aruch. That's what I'm saying.
So what are things that are not things that are not Shulchan Aruch?
Things that are not Shulchan Aruch, huh? Yeah, things like the way that I'm thinking, the extra things that I'm taking upon myself, right? There are obviously also gray areas like Chalav Yisrael. Is that an actual thing that's more halacha, or is that more of a minhag?
That's
halacha
technical.
Or Hasidic things. That's technical stuff. I'm talking about the really drastic stuff, like, do I have to go to shlichus and go and put on tefillin on every single person and mamash dress up like a Lubavitcher, or do I have to be a Breslover and grow my payas out and you know learn a Chassidish, do Ishbitz every day for at least an hour, and you know whatever it's gonna be mekasher myself to Rabbi Nachman whenever I read Tikkun Klali every single day, whatever it's gonna be. Obviously these are all good things. I know a lot of Lubavitchers that read Tikkun Klali. You're gonna say they're going against Lubavitch? No, I'm saying you have to find something that's mekasher you to Hashem, whatever it's gonna be. I heard actually a lot in Chabad. It's to find that thing that you feel yourself that you're mekasher to you're mekasher to Hashem through, or through that thing you can find a yid's way.
Of course, if a
Hashem.
person is genuinely searching, he's trying to find his path, then yeah, you can go from path to path. But someone who's not serious about it, he's like, oh, okay, let's do it like this, let's do it like that. You know, you have to stick, because I remember hearing from some rabbi that like you have to stay to your path. You can't just pick and choose.
100%, but sometimes
I'm not talking about halacha, even the non-halachic things.
Right.
I think
you have to stay to your path, meaning, but if you're building your path and you don't know what's your path yet.
Right. As a beginner, right.
You can't be thrown into a path and said you have to go through this. That's it. There's no bechira here.
It's hard. You have to be very open-minded. I know in some Chabad institutions, it's like
there's nothing else.
They feel very bad when someone doesn't end up Chabad. Like in about Shuvah Yeshiva.
Everything, you know. Why?
But yeah.
It's Adraba. I think as long as you're Oived Hashem, be happy with it. Hashem doesn't want Breslovers in the world. If he didn't want it, they wouldn't exist.
Right.
Hashem doesn't want Katzkers in the world. Doesn't want Sephardim. I'm saying Sephardim is very different. He doesn't want Mekubalim in the world. He wants them. Afalpi that they don't do everything like Chabad. Okay.
Yeah.
They're Oived Hashem. They can't connect to Hashem that way. They could. Maybe they're not doing it as much as you are, and you're better. I don't know if you're better. Right? You never know if you're better.
Remember we had this discussion last podcast why Chabad puts themselves higher.
Right. So
And
that's
that's the reason, because in Chabad we think that we're better than everyone else.
You have a lot of rayas maybe to it, right? But you can't really know. You can't really know. I know there's people who weren't Chabad that connected to Hashem. They went a different derech. They connected to Hashem. Right.
All right, I believe we're running out of time. Thank you very much, Daniel. It was very nice.
Thank you very much.
And maybe for Chelik 3.
For Chelik Gimel.
Part 3.
Maybe I'll open my own podcast already. Have you as a...
Yeah. It was very nice.
Guest.
Hope you enjoyed. L'chaim Mashiach now.
Mashiach now.